Ayaan and Sara, two childhood friends, grew up in a small town where life moved slowly, but their dreams were big. Ayaan wanted to be an engineer, and Sara an author. Despite their talents, they struggled with poor time management, often wasting valuable hours on distractions. Ayaan's family had high expectations for him. His father, a successful businessman, often reminded him to focus on his studies. But Ayaan would lose hours scrolling through social media, convincing himself that he would catch up later. His procrastination became a habit he couldn't break. Sara's situation wasn't much different. Her mother, a teacher, encouraged her to write every day. But Sara would always find herself distracted by household chores, phone calls, or just daydreaming. She loved writing, but never managed to give it the time it needed. Days turned into weeks. Their families were worried. Ayaan's mother often told him, "Time doesn't wait for anyone, Beta. If you don't use it wisely, it'll slip through your fingers." Sara's father echoed similar concerns. "If you don't prioritize your writing, how will your dream of being a famous author come true?" The pressure from society began to weigh on them. Relatives would ask, "When will you graduate?" Or, "Have you started working on your novel?" Ayaan and Sara felt embarrassed, but never admitted their problem. They told everyone they were too busy, even though they knew the real issue. Ayaan's university exams were fast approaching, and he had barely touched his books. He told himself there was still time, that he would study the next day. But each day brought new distractions, and the hours slipped away. He ignored the growing anxiety in his chest. Sara had a deadline for a writing competition, but she hadn't written a single word. She sat at her desk, staring at a blank page. Instead of writing, she spent hours cleaning her room, convincing herself that she couldn't focus in a messy space. Another day wasted. Ayaan's father noticed his son's grades dropping and became concerned. "You used to be one of the top students, Ayaan. What's happening?" Ayaan had no real answer. He made excuses, saying the coursework was harder than expected. But deep down, he knew his time management was the problem. Sara's mother found her daughter's unused notebooks. "You say you want to be a writer, but where's your work?" Sara felt ashamed. She promised she would start writing, but she couldn't shake the habits that had taken root, endless scrolling on her phone and binge-watching TV shows. The pressure mounted. Society had its own expectations. Ayaan's friends had already secured internships, and Sara's peers were publishing short stories online. They both felt left behind, trapped in a cycle of procrastination. Everyone around them seemed to be moving forward while they stood still. One evening, Ayaan and Sara met at their favorite cafe. They hadn't seen each other in weeks, both too consumed by their struggles. As they sipped coffee, they confessed their fears. "I feel like time is slipping away," Ayaan said. Sara nodded. "Me too." "I don't know how to fix it." They realized that they were not alone in their struggles. Both had been running from the same problem: poor time management. They talked about how they wasted time and promised to help each other improve. But even then, they knew change wouldn't be easy. Old habits die hard. Ayaan decided to create a study schedule, planning out his days hour by hour. He downloaded productivity apps, hoping they would keep him on track. But each time a notification popped up on his phone, he was tempted to check it. His concentration was fragile, easily broken. Sara, too, tried to change her habits. She set aside a specific time each day to write. But as soon as she sat down, she found herself checking emails or browsing the internet for inspiration. Instead of writing, she spent hours consuming content, but producing none. Their families tried to help. Ayaan's mother suggested he turn off his phone while studying, while Sara's father advised her to disconnect from the internet while writing. Both tried to follow this advice, but temptation was always just a click away, pulling them back into distraction. As Ayaan's exams drew closer, his stress levels skyrocketed. He hadn't studied enough and felt overwhelmed. His poor time management had left him unprepared, and now the pressure was too much. He stayed up late cramming, but exhaustion made it difficult to retain anything. Sara's competition deadline was in 2 days, and she still had no story to submit. She panicked, trying to write something at the last minute, but the words wouldn't come. The stress of procrastination had drained her creativity, leaving her with nothing but frustration. Ayaan failed 2 of his exams. His father was disappointed, and Ayaan felt like he had let his family down. He knew his poor time management was to blame, but admitting that was harder than making excuses. He vowed to do better next time, but the cycle felt unbreakable. Sara missed the competition deadline. Her mother was upset, knowing how much it meant to her. Sara couldn't explain why she had wasted so much time. The guilt weighed heavily on her, and she felt like she was failing not just herself, but everyone who believed in her. Time kept slipping away. Weeks turned into months, and Ayaan and Sara found themselves in the same patterns. They wanted to change, but the world around them moved too fast. Society's expectations became louder, and their families continued to worry. It felt like they were running out of time. One day, Ayaan's younger brother, Ali, confronted him. "You're always telling me to focus on my studies, but you don't practice what you preach," Ali said. Ayaan was stunned. His little brother was right. He had become a bad role model, and that realization hit him hard. Meanwhile, Sara's cousin, Layla, a successful entrepreneur, visited their home. Layla had mastered time management and was thriving. Sara admired her, but felt a pang of jealousy. "How do you do it?" Sara asked. Layla smiled. "It's all about discipline and setting clear priorities. You have to choose what matters." Inspired by Layla's words, Sara decided to take action. She began to wake up early and write for an hour each morning, no matter how she felt. It was difficult at first, but slowly, her discipline grew. She felt a sense of accomplishment as the words began to flow. Ayaan, too, started making changes. He set strict limits on his screen time, turning off his phone during study sessions. He began to focus more, realizing that time was a resource he couldn't afford to waste. The results weren't immediate, but his focus gradually improved. Their families noticed the changes. Ayaan's mother was proud to see her son taking his studies more seriously, and Sara's father encouraged her to keep writing. Though progress was slow, they began to regain their confidence. Time, once their enemy, was starting to become an ally. Ayaan continued his studies, but he also made time for his hobbies and his family. He no longer felt the guilt of wasting time because he had learned to balance his responsibilities with his passions. His life was fuller now, and he felt more in control. Sara's writing career blossomed. She published her first novel, and it received critical acclaim. The hours she had once wasted on distractions were now spent crafting stories that moved people. She was living her dream, and she knew that none of it would have been possible without better time management. Ayaan and Sara often met to reflect on their journeys. Over coffee, they would laugh about their old habits, the procrastination, and the missed deadlines. But they were no longer stuck in those patterns. They had grown, and they were proud of the people they had become. As they shared stories of their progress, they realized something important. Poor time management had once held them back, but it had also taught them valuable lessons. They knew now that time was precious, and they had learned to respect it. Their futures were bright. Their story became an inspiration in their town. Friends and neighbors began to ask them for advice on how to manage time better. Ayaan and Sara gladly shared their tips, knowing that if they could overcome poor time management, anyone could. They wanted to help others succeed. Ayaan's family threw a small celebration for his academic achievements. His father made a speech, praising Ayaan's dedication and growth. Ayaan felt a deep sense of pride, not just for his grades, but for the person he had become. He had learned to value his time and his goals. Sara's first book signing event was a success. Her parents stood in the crowd, beaming with pride as Sara signed copies of her novel. She had once feared she would never get there, but now she knew that with discipline and focus, anything was possible. Time had been on her side. Ayaan and Sara continued to push themselves, knowing that there was always more to learn. They set new goals and challenged themselves to manage their time even better. With each passing day, they grew more confident in their ability to balance their dreams with their responsibilities. Time management had transformed their lives. Ayaan no longer felt rushed or overwhelmed, and Sara no longer feared deadlines. They had learned that managing time was about making choices, choosing to focus, choosing to avoid distractions, and choosing to use every minute wisely. As they looked toward the future, Ayaan and Sara felt optimistic. They knew there would be challenges ahead, but they also knew they had the tools to overcome them. With better time management, they could achieve anything they set their minds to. Time was no longer an enemy. Their town, once a place of pressure and expectations, became a place of support and encouragement. Ayaan and Sara's story inspired others to take control of their time and pursue their dreams. Slowly, the culture of procrastination began to change, and people learned to value their time. Ayaan's friends, once ahead of him in their careers, now admired his discipline and determination. They had never realized how much poor time management had held him back, but now they saw how far he had come. Ayaan was no longer the boy who wasted time. He was a man with a plan. Sara's peers, once publishing stories while she struggled, now sought her advice on how to manage time. She shared her journey openly, hoping to help others avoid the mistakes she had made. She knew that time was the most valuable resource, and she wanted others to succeed. In the end, Ayaan and Sara had learned that time management was the key to unlocking their potential. They had wasted years, but they had also gained wisdom. Now, with a clear sense of purpose and a deep respect for time, they were ready to conquer the world. Effective time management is essential for success and personal growth. Poor time management leads to stress, missed opportunities, and unfulfilled potential. However, with discipline, focus, and the ability to prioritize, it is possible to overcome procrastination, make the most of every moment, and achieve one's dreams. Time is a precious resource that should be respected and used wisely to turn ambitions into reality. If you enjoyed this story and found value in its message about time management, make sure to like the content, comment with your thoughts or experiences,